have invested well administratively as well as the professional attributes that contribute to a well-run football. So we are getting there, and we've introduced just recently, and when I say we, I mean CAF has introduced, club licensing. So they are registered players, they're licensed, and professionalism is improving with each day. Hence, the cream rises to the top, and you now get serious clubs who know that ultimately you're not only getting the 1.5 million, which is the prize money, but you get to play and represent the continent in the FIFA Club World Cup. And teams want to get there.
Yes, indeed.
We saw last year with Raja Casablanca doing so well.
It was amazing to be in the second place. It's something that's it's definitely a great achievement. But you mentioned something about licensing, and how are you introducing this?
Sharif, as we speak now, all the clubs playing in this year's competitions, the two CAF competitions, the Confederation Cup, as well as the Champions League, have already had people from their clubs come through to CAF, been taught and schooled on how the system works. So everyone is registered now. You can, as we speak, go on the CAFonline.com website and be able to get the team list of these players. And you know what they give you? Their age, their numbers, what they wear on the back, and their passport number and their registration. So this is something that you couldn't get prior to this year. So it is happening now, and there will be more and more clubs registered. Those clubs that are currently playing in the CAF club competitions are already registered under this club licensing system. So it's a real great idea, and it's happening as we speak.
Interesting to see this development going forward. But if I go back to the point that you've mentioned about those teams to be able to be in the group stages, they invested in their administration side, and they have done enormous efforts to be in this situation. So, and I think it's obvious that you are an observer to watch and to follow these teams and how they're progressing, because it's benefiting the African football at the end of the day. So how did this happen? What did you observe in terms of the type of investment they have done?
Okay, I'll start probably with Ali Benghazi. They have gone out and got some top players. They've got, for instance, the goal scorer, Edward Sadomba.
Yes.
He's been proven goal scorer with Al Hilal in Sudan. He comes across to Benghazi. He's top goal scorer 2 seasons ago in the Champions League. So they have spent their money well, and they've collected some good players, including Moses, who played just last year in the Under-20 World Cup for Nigeria. So that in itself shows commitment on the part of raising a team, because the standard is high, so you got to get the best. We see that a lot in Europe. The teams that, we'll come to it, I know later on, that are playing currently in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, they have spent well, and they've invested in different departments. So that is coming through. Look at teams like Esperance. They've got some top players from Cameroon and from Ghana. So it's an area where teams are really, looking into and saying, well, if we want to be the best, we've got to scout the globe, or in this case, the continent, African continent, and get the cream to our club. And when you do that, you pay them well, you look after them, you provide for them. So that, again, raises the level of your game in the sense that you're now playing professionally, because you don't just get these top players from across the country, the continent, and then not look after them. So professionalism, as I said earlier on, is improving day by day. And then when you look at teams like Zamalek, and so I'll pick on Zamalek from here, they have not conceded a goal yet so far in the 2 matches they've played, in the first round and the second round. So they must have worked on something there, and their defense is solid. And as we said earlier on, he might be new, but somehow, so far, Mido has got it right, whatever he's done, and the team is solid, and they've not conceded. So hence, they are in the last 8.
Yes, this is very true. So leveraging that you're from Zimbabwe, let me ask you this question. Why aren't we seeing Zimbabwean teams or clubs within the, the top 8 or the group stages, despite having a very strong national team?
Oh, very interesting question. I must say, Dynamos, who have perennially been the team that, carries the flag of the Zimbabwean sides in these club competitions, failed for the fourth year on the trot to qualify to the group stages.
Yes.
I think it's largely because there's not been enough money in football at the moment. The country has been going through a bit of an economic, dip, and that has affected football. So they are behind in some of the things we mentioned. When you see them travel, it's always like last minute. They eventually manage to get the airfares for the tickets, or teams travel in batches instead of as a group and arriving 24 to 48 hours before the game. That's not good preparation. So they have lagged behind. But if you remember, they were in the final in 1998 against ASEC Mimosa and lost the final. But back in those days, the preparation was better than it is today.
And the investment was higher.
Yes, and it's tied in with the economy of the country. So I'm sure when it's turning, for the good, I'm sure when finally it's got its firm footing, the economy that is, it will translate into the football as well. And you might see Dynamos, and there's also Highlanders. In fact, incidentally, you mentioned there's the team from Zimbabwe that played in the Confederation Cup currently has the top goal scorer so far in the competition, Kudakwashe Musharu, who has got 6 goals, and they went as far as the second round, losing out to the Nigerian Bielsa. So I think the sun is beginning to shine a little bit better for the Zimbabwean clubs than previously, but
not as strong as what they show in terms of performance in the national team, but definitely it's the clubs is usually different. Because they need a lot of investments. And looking at a team like Ahli, they have done great investments over the past years, and this is why they had this sort of shining and glamour over the past periods and all of those titles. I wish them all the best, definitely, with the with higher investments to have such teams which has skillful players to be showing up on the stage. If we move now to the Confederation Cup, and CAF announced yesterday the draws for that, so if you can share with us the latest draw.
Yes, indeed, Sheriff, that was quite an interesting draw. As I mentioned, 8 teams that dropped down from the Champions League, quite some strong sides. Defending champions Ali, we had AC Leopards from Congo Brazzaville, winners of the Confederation Cup 2 years ago. So they also back in the Confederation Cup now. We have Kaizer Chiefs from South Africa. Cotton Sport made the semi-finals of the Champions League last year. They're playing this year in the Confederation Cup. Horoya from Guinea, Sewes San Pedro from Cote d'Ivoire, and Kana from Zambia. And Kana lost out to Zamalek. So when the draw was done yesterday, the pairings came out this way. So now Ali will play against Diafa El Jadida of Morocco. A North African derby, should be feisty and interesting. Real Bamako, and that one, depending on which way you look at it, it's an all Mali contest. So Real Bamako versus Joliba. They know each other very well, play in the same league in Mali. And we've got 2 Tunisian sides in there, and we had 2 Malian sides. So somehow it was bound to happen, and it happened for the Malians. So the 2 sides will battle it out for a place. One thing you're definitely assured of, there will be a team from Mali in the group stages because, the winner remains in Mali.
One of them, yes. Exactly.
Yeah, and Kaizer Chiefs will take on ASEC Mimosas from Cote d'Ivoire, Southern Africa versus West Africa. Cotton Sport will be traveling down to Southern Africa to play against Petro, Angola. Petro have got 2 former Ali boys, Flavio and Gilberto, and they're still going. Can you believe it? After all those years,
I didn't know that they're still going.
Yes, they were here, and they knocked out Ismailia. So it's fantastic for those guys. And then Horoya from Guinea will take on Etoile du Sahel, Tunisia, and then Sewe San Pedro will meet Bielsa, the Nigerians, who I mentioned earlier on, beat Haumine of Zimbabwe. And then finally, Nkana Red Devils, Nkana used to be called Red Devils, but not anymore. Nkana FC from Zambia will take on CA Byzantine from Tunisia.
So this mix, it's amazing mix. You find Nigerian, Tunisian, Guinea, Cote d'Ivoire, Cameroon, Angola, South Africa, Ghana. And so it's like a heavy mix. Like you mentioned, it's much more, it's scaling towards African clubs more than what we're seeing in African Champions League.
Yes.
Now it's the group stage is left with a couple of teams, like you mentioned, Northern side, more or less.
Yes.
Which was having a domination over the group stages when it comes to Tunisian teams and Algerian and Egyptian. Yes. So do you think, from the perspective of CAF, when you have these sort of clubs from everywhere at this stage, and most probably it looks like having a club from every country, it's probably going to be that way when it comes to group stages. How are you looking at it as something beneficial for the African football?
Oh, I think it bodes well if you have every region represented. I mean, it's not by choice. We don't specifically go out and say you must have a team from each region, but it shows that football is really becoming the kind of sport where you cannot just turn up and expect to win simply because in the past you were the winners. It shows it's improving across board, and I know we'll come to it later on when we look at the Africa Cup of Nations.
Exactly.
We had some fantastic breath of fresh air, seeing Cape Verde and the likes of Ethiopia coming back in. So when that happens in the group stages of a competition, it makes it more interesting because the play and pattern and styles are different. So when you have a North African team clashing against the West African, and then you add into the mix a Southern African or East African, then it is the competition you want to see. So I think, as I said, it will be more reflective of the Africa Orange CAF Confederation Cup in this season than it would be for the Champions League, providing, as we say, these pairings turn out to be that way. Because it's still possible that you could have one region dominate here. As you said, North African teams tend to do better than the rest of the regions.
Yes, so you think there might be a switch when it comes to the group stages, not necessarily to have teams from Guinea, and Mali would be having one team from Mali. That's
most
sure.
definitely,
So,
yes, yeah.
And I think Ali is also going to be focused because Ali can't waste this opportunity anymore. So there are teams that are obviously there, but let's see how it moves. It's going to be interesting. We're going to be speaking in the next segment more about the World Cup and also the African teams. And despite the fact that African teams or African clubs are one of the most, if not the most, producing the skillful and professional players from Africa to playing across the entire world, and yet the portion that we're having in terms of the World Cup is not increasing. We'll be speaking more about that right after this break, and we'll be moving with this story about tennis. And the six-time Grand Slam winner Novak Djokovic claimed his fourth Miami Masters crown with a dominating straight sets win over world number one Rafael Nadal last Sunday. Let's have a look at the story.